Hi, I'm Laura. I'm Big Sister. I'm also the clinical nutritionist here at Sugar Sober. You are just about to watch our free training, what to do and exactly what not to do when you've had a bad week of overeating. So, we're so excited. We're going to do a giveaway for watching this training. Watch through the whole thing. When we say the word jump rope, which is write down the minute point at which we say jump rope and send that to us. That is your submission. And you will be entered to win the gorgeous Sugar Sober 30-day food journal. And this is the central tool of all Sugar Sober programs. So we will mail this to you so you can get started with your own food journal process. So make sure you pay attention, write down the word jump rope, submit by, let's say, Tuesday at midnight. We will take all submissions till Tuesday at midnight. So it gives you a few days to catch the recording. We know lives are busy. But now let's dive in. So excited for you guys to see this one. Welcome to our Thursday weekly live that is not on Thursday and is not live, but it's just for you. Every week we host a free training in the clubhouse. This week, Tech and Meta decided to throw lightning bolts at us and we couldn't go live. So we're doing the whole training as a recording and we're sending to every single Sugar Sober member in their email. And we wanted to make sure every single person got it because this training is really good. Every single person in Sugar Sober can relate to that feeling of oh my God, I completely lost control for a whole week. Or even if you're not the most extreme case, even if you were not binge eating for 7 straight days or, 14 straight days, this applies to everyone. If things start to feel like a slippery slope when you overeat, this is for you. So we wanted to make sure we got it in the inbox of everybody. So let's break down exactly what you can expect from today's training. First and foremost, we're going to talk about getting in the right mindset about what's going on. What is actually at the root of this behavior? We're going to talk about what you can do immediately when you know you've overeaten and lost control. And this is equally as important. We're going to talk about what not to do when this happens, when you have overeaten. So Hannah's going to open us up with the mindset, and then we'll get into the practical pieces. Take it away, Hannah.
Thank you. Yeah. So mindset, this is really, really important, right? Because how you're looking at the situation, how you're looking at how things are going down is really going to have drastic impacts on what you do about it and your success in the long run, right? So in any normal diet, not on a diet, but just what you eat, there's probably going to be times when you overindulge, right? There's Thanksgiving, there's parties, there's vacations, it just naturally happens sometimes. And like Laura was saying, and then there's the times where it's a full-on binge and you just kind of totally lost control for maybe even days or weeks at a time. The goal here is not to never indulge and just abstain from all of that, right? The goal here is to be able to indulge a healthy amount, to be able to go to the party and have some cake and not be obsessed with it later, or having a binge that night because now you've cracked the seal, right? You want to be able to be level-headed about it. And even the most level-headed person is probably going to have a little too much, at the family cookout. It's going to happen and that's okay. So I think that's an important thing to remember.
I another example, just because this is fresh on my mind, because I mentioned, was traveling for work this week. It's a 3-hour road trip. I do it about 4 times a year. And in my past, any sort of road trip just absolutely kicked off compulsively binge eating. It was this interaction with the food is sitting shotgun with me and it's just this motion. And I would make 4 pit stops within a 3-hour drive because I need something spicy and crunchy. Now I need something sweet and gooey. And that does not happen anymore. That compulsive overeating and binging does not happen anymore. And also there is this one ultra spicy ghost pepper chip that I can only get from the gas stations in the region where I go to. And so I always get it. That is an indulgence. It is not an overindulgence. It is not binge eating. I do not need to come home and be oh my God, I got to get back on the wagon. That absolutely lives within a reasonable context. And I indulge in it and I enjoy it. And I have to get 2 bottles of water because it's insanely spicy. But that's another example. There is the cookout, there is the birthday party, there is true binging, and then there is indulging. There is road trip binge eating, and then there is road trip, this special treat that I love to have at this one occasion.
Yeah.
And deciphering that is the mindset component that's crucial to understanding your behavior and rerouting problem behavior.
Yeah, you got to be able to put things in the right place, instead of being oh, anything that I enjoyed is probably a binge.
Totally.
But there are, genuine cases where it's a binge, like it's not going well. Um, and I think especially when you're new to this approach of like looking at your diet and your eating behavior, like from a behavioral science standpoint, learning all of this, it's tough. You're resetting old, really ingrained habits. And with any habit that we want to change, there's going to be some times when it's like, a day or a week there where it feels like, one step forward and two steps back. Like you're trying to get a new routine going. And I think we can apply this to anything even beyond food, right? If you just want to do a new habit or change a habit, it's going to be tough. There's going to be pushback from your brain because it likes its routines. It likes familiarity. Mm-hmm. Then when we add on the layer of compulsive eating, there's a lot of emotionality around it, right? And so then it feels like everything is falling apart when we're not the most perfect eater. So it's a really tough pattern to break. It's like going against the grain, and then you've got this like really potently emotional thing going on with it too.
It's like you're stressed, and then you're stressed about being stressed.
Yeah, exactly.
So like you have a problem habit, and then your habit is to freak out about having a problem habit. Like, yeah. So it's really compounding how inflexible you actually are. It makes it more calcified. It makes it harder for the neuron pathways to be flexible and find a new option. The more you shame yourself and freak out about the behavior.
Yes. And like the whole message that we so often tell ourselves, like, well, I just don't have control, is not the actual problem. And it's holding you back from resolving the actual problem, right? It's not about that. It's about you need to get practical and use the right tools and the right way of looking at what's going on in order to overcome it. And you just haven't been taught those tools or how to look at it and see what's going on and pick it apart so that you can figure out how to avoid that next time.
Yeah. Yeah. The problem is not who you are. Right. This is not in your DNA. This is simply a behavior pattern that's kind of just free fall. Like it's just kind of spiraling out of control. So we just re-engineer that. That's doable.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's talk about it. This happened, right? You were overeating this week, yesterday, whatever. Let's first talk. I don't want to talk first about what you do. I want to talk about what you don't do because you're probably doing it. So let's talk about what you should not be doing.
Absolutely. Let's like unroll this immediately. You are going to be tempted to do this. You probably already are doing it. We're filming this on Saturday, so probably by Monday, you're going to want to do this. Do not go back onto a restrictive diet. Do not do it. Do not do it. Do not do it. Tattoo that on the back of your hand. Do not go back on a restrictive diet. You are going to be tempted to. That has been sold as the singular solution for literally decades. Like literally since your grandmother was a new mom pushing a cart in the grocery store, she was told she should just go on a restrictive diet anytime she overeats. How's that working out for everybody? We know it doesn't. Like what we know, and this is in the behavior research, is that the more you restrict is equally proportional to how likely you are to binge. So the illustration I really like to give is if you think about how far you pull back an arrow is equivalent to how far you're going to launch that arrow. So the more you restrict and pull back, the more profound that is going to swing the other direction. And you're finally, eventually, it may be the very next day, it may be 3 months from now, but you're going to be like, I can't do this anymore. And you're going to like free fall face first into brownie batter. I promise. So do not do this. We're going to talk about what you can do instead, because if we say, hey, the only option you've ever been given is a restrictive diet, like intermittent fasting, only eat between these hours, only eat this many carbs, no white sugar, no white flour. There's so many different versions of a restrictive diet. That's all you've ever been offered as a tool. And the first thing we're saying is do not do that. We're taking that off the table. That is not a tool you have any longer. You're probably looking at us like, what in the hell do these girls expect me to do instead? Right? You're like setting me up for failure. Promise we're not. We promise we're just getting you out of this cycle of doing the exact same thing over and over. This binge, feel guilty, restrict. Arrow throws, back into binging. Feel guilty, restrict. We have to interrupt that. The best way to do it, let's pull out the restrictive piece, because that's the piece you have the most control over. You have the most control over deciding not to be super restrictive. You don't right now. We do not have a whole lot of control over the binging. Like by definition, we're saying it's compulsive. By definition, we're saying we feel out of control. So if Hannah and I were like, we'll just stop binging and then the cycle will stop, we haven't helped you either.
Right.
The piece we have control over is choosing not to get back into a restrictive diet because it is just going to launch you further into the very behavior you don't want, which is compulsive overeating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. The second piece.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Sorry if I jumped on.
No.
Is
Funny.
shame piece. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Like what to do? Do not restrict, but we also have to talk about the shaming and the mindset.
Right. I think just like when I was talking about mindset, right? It's like there's the behavior, the habit, and then there's the emotionality around it, right?
Yeah.
Like these two different things we're working with. So like the don't restrict is the part of the behavior piece of it, right? You don't want to be pulling that arrow back because that's going to cause that action.
Mm-hmm.
The emotionality is do not get all shame and guilt and just getting so down on yourself, like this, see, I always mess up and then blah, blah, blah. I just can't trust myself. All of that mentality. Because again, it's not helping you get to where you want to go. And it's actually going to keep you stuck in that same pattern because you're probably overeating to like balm some sort of discomfort or a lot of feelings that are going on. So when we're just adding more shitty feelings to that, it's not going to help you either.
100%.
Right? Shame leads you to hide from it, right? You kind of trying to hide this from everybody else. You're trying to hide what's going on. Don't want anyone to know because it's so embarrassing. It's so shameful. Then you're not going to be able to change it. Then you're just isolating and hiding away in this like fort of wrappers and boxes of food because you're just stuck in there, right?
Yeah.
So what you want to do instead is get like curious, get observant, start paying attention to why this is happening in the first place, right? I always like to say, like, think about it as like a dear friend. If a dear friend was saying, I'm really struggling with this, like, you wouldn't just go and shame them and think that's going to change their behavior. Would want to be like, why is this? What's going on? Like, why is this happening? Where did this start? All of those kinds of questions start coming up. You need to do that to yourself because if you don't get curious and figure out why it's happening, then you're never going to be able to get out of it because you're just in the dark, still stuck in that cycle, like just kind of whirlwinded from it all.
Yeah. I think when we use shame as a response to our compulsive overeating episodes, whether it's for 7 days in a row, 7 years in a row, or the last 7 minutes, like when we use shame, we hide from other people. So we do not like evolve into the person we want to be. We hide from other people. We also hide from ourselves. We have very immediate like, that was awful. That sucks. I just don't want to look at it. This is I'm so ashamed of myself. I very quickly want to pivot my attention as fast as possible. So if we are willing to drop the shame, just like you said, you can pick up curiosity instead. What if we just chose to get really curious about what just happened in the last 7 minutes instead of like, oh my God, I'm so guilty of this. This is so embarrassing. I'm so ashamed I do this. I'm going to stop looking at it.
Right.
That's what most of us do. And we did that as well. It's not until we're like, I just choose to not be ashamed. I choose to be like, oh, that was weird. Let's get curious. Like,
what's going on right now?
What is that? Maybe you need an alter ego, and that's okay too. But like, let's choose curiosity over shame. That's a better tool. The last thing to add on to that. So these are 3 things you don't do. You don't go into restriction. You don't go into a shame spiral, either around other people, like my relationship to other people witnessing this, or of yourself. You do not go into a shame spiral about yourself. The third one you do not do is you simply make the decision. This overeating is not evidence for the story that I can't get control. And you may not have thought about this way before, but most of us decide on that story. We have this belief that every time we overeat, it is evidence for the story that I can't get control. And if you have that belief, and if you tie every single time you overindulge to see, it's proof I can't get control of what I eat, then you're right. Like you will absolutely make that a true
self-fulfilling. Yeah.
Absolutely. If we just decide that one has nothing to do with the other, my ability to get control is completely separate from if I did do it right now. Because they are.
Right.
It's a skill set you are learning. It's a process you are learning. It is a system, a literal step-by-step system Hannah and I teach. Just because you're not doing it right now doesn't mean you can't do it. Those are 2 completely separate things. Just because I'm not, well, I was going to come up with another metaphor, but I don't need to. You get it. Another metaphor coming right now. But I think it's really important to, first of all, recognize you're probably doing that and then make a conscientious choice to stop doing that. That is the only way to take your power back, is to decide it is not evidence for a story that you made up that you are incapable of doing this. Just because you're not doing it does not mean you can't, or just because it didn't happen in this last 7 minutes or these last 7 days does not mean you can't. You just need the system.
Exactly. Exactly.
So everybody, okay. That's the
Okay.
things we don't do because that's probably the top three things you've always done.
We know what to not do. We're not
Hmm.
just gonna be like, okay, so good luck, bye.
Yeah.
Right? What do you do? You wake up this morning, you're like, well, yesterday was a mess. I don't know
Hmm.
what's going on.
Hmm.
Okay, if we're not going to go super restrictive, all of that, what are we going to do? We're going to get back to normal. We're going to try to find a homeostasis here, right? So really you're going to be doing really like less than you probably think you need to be doing. That's
Yeah.
actually the magic key here, I'll say.
Because
Basically,
to
you
get
just
back to that image, like you're not gonna pull it back like this. You're just gonna be, oh, I gotta come
right.
back to center. I gotta come back to center.
Yeah. Like come back if you're thinking about a pendulum, right? Of like super restrictive, super binge. We want to just keep in that really nice middle ground. So
Mhm.
you're basically just going to jump back into like normal, healthy eating routines that you know. And I think when we're in the food and we're coming out of this, it's like we suddenly like we want to be healthy, healthy, healthy so much that it's like we overthink it and we're like, I don't even know what healthy is anymore. Like, do I eat eggs? Are eggs healthy? Are eggs not? Should I have starch in the morning? I don't know. Like, let's just get rid of all of that and things like, okay, I know how to make a balanced meal, right? You
Yeah.
know more than you think you do. You have to just kind of calm down sometimes and remember that.
Yeah. You're totally
Um, so basically, like if you wake up this morning and last night was a shit show, have a normal breakfast instead of skipping breakfast, right?
right. Amen. For the love of all that is holy.
Yes.
Have
Have a
breakfast.
normal breakfast. Because
Yeah.
again, you're just going to skip breakfast. You're pulling that arrow back, right? You're being like, well, restrict, restrict, restrict. Don't do it. Don't do it. Right? If you wake up this morning, also have 3 balanced meals. Don't like try to half size every portion that you have to make up for yesterday's extra calories or whatever it is.
Mhm.
You want to just get back to your normal routine and just go about, I'm going to have breakfast, I'm going to have lunch, I might have a little snack, and then I'm going to have dinner. I
Yeah.
might even have a little tasty treat in the evening because that's the other thing. Allow yourself to still have some indulgences, healthy amount of indulgence, but don't be like, okay, I'm just not going to have sweets all week. I
Mm-hmm.
got plenty in, right? Because then what are you doing? You're restricting, you're pulling that arrow back. Even if you're still eating all your regular meals, if you're like, oh, but don't have sugar, but don't
Ever.
have sugar, but you can't have sugar. No. Because I remember last weekend, I'm not going to do that. So I'm not going to have any. Because then the second that you do allow yourself and the second that sugar touches your tongue, you're going to, I think of like those like old fashioned cartoons where the eyes are all like, oh God, like, you're gonna lose control because you just
Absolutely.
built it up so much in
Yeah.
your own mind
Yeah.
around this piece of chocolate or whatever it is that it's gonna like set you up for a binge. So you're gonna
Absolutely.
go back to normal amounts of like, I can have a couple squares of dark chocolate in the evening while I'm watching TV. Like that's healthy, that's normal. Go back to that. Just what would you normally do? It's
Yeah.
like deceptively simple, but it's extremely powerful instead of like swinging back and forth on this extreme pendulum all the time. You might be like, oh, I binge, but I'm just going to come right back here instead of
Mm-hmm.
going back again.
Yeah. You're completely right. A real breakfast, 3 real meals, something that is a treat in a completely healthy, normal portion size.
Yes.
All of this is going to set you up to have a normal day of eating to much greater effect than being like nothing, no breakfast because I'm intermittent fasting, nothing but a salad for lunch, maybe six almonds,
Yeah.
like nothing but green smoothie girl. Like, how quickly are you then going to stumble right into overeating again?
It's just,
So,
yeah, it starts getting real neurotic real
yeah,
fast.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
And there's a
Um,
couple non-food things you can do
ooh,
as well. And you
take
should
care.
as well. Um, the first one I will mention is incorporate movement. And I am not talking about burning it off at the gym. What I'm talking about is like getting your body moving, just going for a walk, doing some stretching, dancing in your living room.
Yeah.
Huge impacts on your mental health. Like huge impacts on like everything that's going on, getting that blood pumping. So don't just like wake up and then just, you feel like shit. You're like, okay, I'm going to eat a breakfast. And then you just like lay on the couch all day. You're going to still feel like lethargic, maybe that binge hangover feeling. But if you can just like get some blood pumping and move around a little bit, it really does a huge difference.
Absolutely. And it brings you back to energy balance. And what I mean by that is when we are compulsively overeating, there's this real jittery energy, and moving helps move that through us. And also, if we compulsively did overeat And so we have that binge hangover physically and also
Mm,
mentally, emotionally. We're feeling ashamed and guilty and we're trying to hide. That is an incredibly low energy state. And
mm,
movement is going to help remove the stagnation and just move a little bit. So, like Hannah said, this doesn't have to be some kind of boot camp calorie burn. This
right.
needs to be, if I want to come back to that pendulum middle, my food needs to be different. What I'm eating needs to be different, but also what I'm doing with my body needs to be different. My energy has to come back to middle. And whether you need to come down or up, movement is your tool. It's absolutely your tool.
Yeah, and make it fun. Like go find if you're like, I don't know what to do, that's not just exercise, like just get creative with it. Like touch in with like your inner child. You know what I mean? Like go roller skating, go hula hooping, join a cool dance class. Like you can be creative and have like do movement for the joy of it and not just for workout. Again, I think when we're in diet culture so much, we kind of forget that. There's a lot
Yep.
of options of how to move your body.
Yeah. Yeah. Recently I've decided I really want to get into jump rope.
Ooh,
I
like
just
all the
bought,
cool like fancy jumping and everything.
yeah. Yeah. I just bought one. I'm going to start on Monday. I'm really excited.
Ooh, fun. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
cool. Okay, you'll have to
It makes me feel like recess. Like,
yeah, yeah, it's like rhythmic.
yeah.
Cool. Okay, I have
Anything else we should do? Yeah.
one more, and that is to change up your environment as much as possible. So like literally getting out of the room. If it's always like, you know, the couch in the evening, that's always like a trigger for my binge. Like then try to switch, at least for a couple days, try to switch up your routine to go in another room even. Like just be in another room, get off of the couch, get out of the house if you need to. Again, just even just like going for a walk around the block, whatever it is, but switch up your environment a little. Our environment is a huge cue for
Yeah.
different habits, right? Like the environment dictates what you do, right? So, like, have you ever like walked into a bathroom and suddenly like, oh, I have to pee? Because it's like cueing something in your brain to like start thinking about that, right?
Totally.
Or like all those little things that happen. So you want to be switching up your environment. Like maybe even move the furniture around if you know it's like
Oh,
chronic.
clever.
Actually, really, if it's like, you know, always in my living room at this time, I don't know, try it. Um, but just try to change things up for a little bit so that you're not still sitting in that same spot and
Mhm.
trying to like push against the habit. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? We're trying to work with what we can change here to set ourselves up for success.
Yeah. No, that's a really, really creative one. You can physically leave the environment, you can change the environment in and of itself, but the environment is a cue. Like when we're in this place, we do this thing. And so we need
Yeah,
to break that. And so just moving the environment is tremendous to help dial down cravings.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So eat normally,
Yes.
allow yourself healthy amounts of indulgence,
Mhm.
incorporate some sort of movement, and change up your environment. Those are the things you can do to get back to that nice homeostasis where you want to be.
Yeah. And none of them cost money. None of them take a tremendous amount of time. All of them are available. And even if there's just one or two that feel specifically like pertinent for you, perfect. They are available. You don't have to buy or sign up for some sort of $300 detox powder. You don't. I
Please,
promise.
please don't do that.
Please don't do that. Okay. Okay. So this was gorgeous. This was actually really fun. So glad we were able to record it and send it to each of you. I'm going to give you an assignment to leave in to actually implement what we just talked about in theory into
Mm,
your real life. I want you to put pen to paper, or you could do a note in your phone if you're a phone notes gal, but I don't
sure.
want it just to become a note gathering dust in, the memory of your phone. I really find pen to paper is crucial, but I want you to write a list of ideas that you can do when you catch yourself sliding on that slippery slope into overeating. Or when you catch yourself like, oh, it just happened. I wasn't able to stop it in the moment. But now I'm like, oh no, I did it. I overate. What do we do there? Right there. That's the moment. What do you do? I want you to write down a list of things we talked about today that are particularly to really speak to you and landed to you. And I want you to keep that list around. I was going to reach over here. I have a list. I literally have a trifold list of things I can do, places I can go. Like, what are some options of things you can do to interrupt the shame spiral and the I should go on a restrictive diet spiral? My desk is beeping. It's a game changer. That way you don't have to count on your memory to hopefully recall this video you watched 6 weeks ago. But it is
Right.
in
Especially
there
when
now.
you're in the emotion of it all, right? Like that's not the time to be relying on memory.
Absolutely.
You're setting your
Absolutely.
success by having a little reference sheet.
Yeah. Okay. So every Thursday, we go live in the Facebook Clubhouse with a free training just like this one, always on a new fresh topic. So be in the Clubhouse, mark your calendar. It happens at 2 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern time. And we want you there. So we'll see you this coming Thursday.
Bye, everybody.